Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our exciting online event, Gamification Beyond Points and Badges. My name is Kiran Sharma, and I'm delighted to be your host today. Today, we embark on an exciting journey into a concept that has revolutionized the way we engage, motivate, and learn. And for this, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers and a moderator who will guide us through an insightful discussion on this topic. So, as we know, gamification has evolved from its early roots in the Boy Scout movement in 1908, where badges were awarded for achievements, to the modern day applications in education, corporate training, and customer loyalty programs. We know that gamification has come a long way. So let us start up with our introduction. So introducing the moderator, our moderator today is Nisha Iyer, a seasoned L&D professional with 18 years of experience, passionate about cultivating growth and fostering talent in the workplace, leveraging innovative technologies and contemporary learning tools to optimize training outcomes, training in general, and public speaking. She's currently associated with Punch Shield Reality as a deputy manager HR, spearheading the learning and development initiatives dedicated to nurturing a culture of continuous learning and professional advancement. And today's first speaker is Rohini Dher, a business leader with over 20 years of human resources experiences across global locations, that is APAC, MEA, North America, and India within ITES, IT, retail, e-commerce industries, and specializing in learning and development. Her expertise includes HR strategy, talent management, performance management, organizational development, and leadership development. A strong believer and passionate about building employee-first organization with a proven ability to align HR functions with business goals, streamline processes, and implement effective employee development frameworks. She has featured in Times of India article on automation in L&D and is also a member of Association of Talent Development, Salesforce Forums, L&D and OD groups. She's currently associated with Infovision as Associate Director, Human Resources. Our next speaker is Sharath MV, an accomplished learning and development professional with over 14 years of experience in the field of HR across different industries, including FMCG, IT, ITES, and telecom. Currently leading global L&D initiatives at Radisys Corporation, he oversees the development of 2,000 plus employees worldwide. Sharath has worked with renowned brands like HPE, Unilever, Entity Data, and Accenture, leveraging his international experience from Dubai and academic background in London to drive impactful learning solutions. With over 8 years of specialized expertise in L&D, Sharath is passionate about enhancing learning experiences through innovative strategies like gamification. Our third speaker is Banu Bhaskar, Manager Global Onboarding and L&D at ChargeBee. With over 15 years of experience in the learning space, Banu has to her credit the exposure to a plethora of industries and various roles pertaining to training, employee engagement, team development, stakeholder management, people management, talent acquisition, human resource, and human resource information systems. Our fourth speaker, Captain Hiral Pandya, is an accomplished HR and learning and development professional with over 14 years of experience. As head of L&D and corporate communication at Wellspun Transformation Services, she designs transformative training programs that boost employee skills and engagement. Her expertise spans talent management, CSR program management, and advanced content development. Hiral holds key certifications like Lean Six Sigma Green Belt and serves as a Brandon Hall Awards and Globee Awards judge. Her strategic thinking and hands-on execution drive exceptional organizational growth and development. So I'm sure we are going to have an incredible session ahead filled with innovative ideas and forward-thinking discussions with such a wonderful lineup of our speakers and moderator. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to our moderator, Nisha Iyer, to kick off the session. Great to have you all online, and let's enjoy the enlightening event together. Nisha, over to you.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And I must say, I'm equally excited and fascinated about to talk and, understand from our panelists everything about gamification. And I really can't wait to start this anymore. So thank you for that. Yes, today we are going to explore a fascinating and an evolving concept called gamification. So while it has gained traction in the learning and development, so there's more just to it than just, points and badges. So gamification has the potential to engage, motivate, and enhance learning in innovative ways. Okay, so the purpose and the intent behind our objective, for the session today is to discuss. The discussion is to dive deeper into how we, as L&D professionals, can move beyond surface level game mechanics and truly leverage the principles of gamification to drive meaningful and long-lasting learning outcomes. So, as we go about today's session, I would like to describe to you all. The session will be divided into four different segments. In the first segment, we will understanding how gamification usage in and by learning and development. In the segment two, so there are four set of questions in each segment. Okay, then we move on to segment two, wherein we understand implementing gamification for learning, for enhancing learning experiences without relying on points and badges. Okay. Then in segment three, we talk about ethical implications of gamification, wherein in segment four, we talk about future challenges and opportunities in gamification. So, are we guys ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, my first question is for Banu from the panelist. So, Banu, when did you first get introduced to the concept of gamification?
Thank you for the question, Nisha. Well, I first came across this concept of gamification way back while doing my master's degree. It was integrated into many of the activities we did, like case studies and project based learning. The course itself had a lot of gamified elements, which made learning a lot more fun. But professionally, though, I really started using gamification back in 2012. During this time, I was running my startup in the space of education, and we used to conduct training programs for fresh graduates. And the program was designed to get them job ready in a very short span of time. To make this process more effective, what we did was we created visual scoreboards for each trainee. Every day, their current scores would be displayed, and at the end of the day, they'd mark their progress on the visual scorecards. Along with their scores, we included their photograph to make it more personalized and asked them to write a one-liner about their future job and the company they hope to join. It became more than just a training exercise for them. This personal touch really made it, the experience real for them. It kept them focused and grounded in what they were working towards. So it wasn't just about seeing their scores; it was a visual cue for them to stay motivated. They could literally see areas they were improving and where they needed focus. It also showcased their strengths and areas they were excelling in. And because this was so interactive, it helped make the training experience much more engaging and personal. What struck me the most about this method was how it turned something that could have been easily stressful, right? Because these are graduates who have been failed in multiple interviews. So now, from this stressful environment, converting this into something that was something into actually motivating and even fun for them, right? So this hands-on experience really helped me understand the concept of gamification in depth and how it has a potential to create an environment where learners take ownership of their own progress and stay fully engaged. So I would say it's also really about tapping into the psychology of what makes games so engaging. Things like motivation, problem solving, and tracking progress. It's important to understand what drives people intrinsically as well. In this book, Drive, Daniel Pink talks about these factors like mastery, autonomy, and purpose, which drives intrinsic motivation. So learners need to feel that the learning is connected to their personal or professional goals and that they are working towards something meaningful. So to make gamification truly effective, we have to weave these principles into the entire learning experience. So that's my experience of gamification and how I got introduced to this and implemented it as well almost 10, 12 years ago.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Banu. And that one point that, got my attention to all that you said was most importantly, why we are introducing this is for the learners to take ownership of their own progress. So that is more important. I feel as an L&D specialist, every company that I've worked as a trainer, as a soft skills trainer, I always feel that this one thing is lacking in all the employees and for our learning as well. So if we take ownership for our learning and progress, I think sky is the limit. But thank you so much for those insights. Okay, my next question is for our respective panelist, Mr. Sharath. Okay, so what was your first experience like with gamification and why did you decide to start using gamification?
Thank you for that wonderful question, Nisha. My experience with the gamification as far as Radius's company is concerned, so before 2019, we were using an in-house LMS system that is
Okay.
fully in-house developed in Radius's, but it was very limited in terms of features, and it looked very boring and simple. It was just getting the job done, right? So let's say somebody wants to go through an important video, a training video or something, and if somebody stresses that, if the manager says, hey, you have to go and watch this, there's no other option for you, then they used to go and watch it. There was no other additional motivation for them. But of course, other than the learning itself, which is an important motivation, but that was not enough. So to make the gamification, to make the LMS platform itself more interesting, so wanted to introduce the concept of gamification. So it was in 2019, we decided to move to a better cloud-based LMS system. So we use a cloud-based system from Europe called Learn-Upon. Now in this platform, it was the first time in Radius we started introducing the concept of gamification. So it was all mostly about points and badges, of course, because somewhere we had to start, right? So we did not even have points and badges before. Now with this new tool that was introduced, we tried to create some excitement. We sent out the marketing materials. We said, hey, we have a better system in place. Why don't you try it on? And now the adoption was still not up to the mark. So when we say we are almost 2000 plus employees worldwide, but when we see the adoption, how many people are utilizing the platform, using it, active users, we say, right? It was hardly touching 100 in a month, which was not up to the mark. Then we really realized the potential of gamification, how it can be a game changer. So we set up points for each and every course completion. We had different interesting badges attached, associated with the courses. And then the word started spreading fast, like wildfire within the company. They say, hey, my profile looks more interesting now. I've earned so many badge. I've got daily completion badge. I've got mastery skills badges, etc. And there was some sort of interest generated. And now to add on top of that, we decided to reward people based on their points. So we introduced some sort of Amazon voucher sort of a concept. And then we said, hey, for the top learners in the company, we are going to reward them. And when this marketing communication was out, there was a lot of adoption. We could already see the trends improving a lot. From hundreds, it started touching 500s in a month. The active users I'm talking about, not just passive users. So it already the number jumped from hundreds in a month to 500s in a month. And of course, the leaderboard is a concept that is very open concept, right? All the learners, they can see themselves where they are currently in the company, their rank in the company. They can see the top learners. And then there was this healthy competition going on. Hey, I'm going to be on the top 5. I need to make sure that I get some rewards. And though it's an extrinsic motivation, but still, there was a lot of adaptation. There was a lot of interest going on. And when you introduce a new tool to the company, you need a lot of traction. You need a lot of excitement building around it. So gamification did that for us. And that was my first hands-on experience in terms of gamification. And it really did wonders for us. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks, Nisha.
That beautifully, sums up exactly what you said, Sharath. And I'm 100% sure as to how excited you were to share the excitement between what the employees had, to be on the first, hey, I have won this, I've won that, and, to see their name flagged up. I'm sure the excitement must be doubled up, especially when you introduce a new platform in the LMS. for gamification platform. Thank you so much for those insights. Move on to the next panelist, Hiral. Okay, so Hiral, what would be the appropriate areas and activities of learning and development where gamification can be used?
So, thanks, Nisha, for the question. And I think I'll try to connect with both the responses we had earlier. So, Bhanu beautifully, elaborated. I think most of the L&D spokes would connect with the emotion that how this was introduced, and followed by Sharat stating the journey of transition from the traditional way to the gamification journey. So, to add on to these aspects, I think there's no limit to the areas where we can include gamification into. And slightly beyond LMS also, I have few things to share. So I'll just start with the areas. If you want to just pick and choose few, cream areas, or the limelight areas. Of course, compliance training is something which can be easily driven in a right way using gamification tools, because that is what rewarding, recognizing, and giving badges, and motivational way of driving the mandatory programs. Along with that, of course, sales, product training, safety training is something which can be used with more gamified tools, like introducing AR and VR into that feature. That can be something. So that's something which I've done in the past. So in my previous organization, we used to have the safety training as a mandatory training under the augmented and the virtual reality. So we used to we know procured few headsets for the visualizing those VRs, and through that we were enabling people to learn the safety module. So it's an immersive experience, because that is something which is not only compliance, it's also an impact that is required through the gamification. So a slight different scenario towards the gamification beyond L&D is the impact of the learning programs. So when we introduce these things into areas of safety, particularly those into the plants, the manufacturing, so there you have laborers who don't learn things on LMS. So this is a neglected crowd most of the time when it comes to learning and development as an intervention. So most of the it's for the white collared. So you have corporate trainings programs for the freshers, trainees, and all of them. But blue collar is something, and always in a traditional way it goes on. There's an instructor, there's a board, there's some max to max we have videos. But if we introduce things like areas, so that experience which I carried in the previous organization of having the blue collar employees trained through the augmented and virtual reality of gamification mode of learning was very, very overwhelming for them. So initially they were very skeptical. Is this going to damage me, because hearing wearing that headgear on your face and seeing it, so it was very overwhelming for them. But eventually, when they experienced moving their hands, trying to click and pick the fire extinguisher, and so that gave them a real life experience at how to use this thing. It's not just for a theory or a video. They can actually experience. Of course, they can't experience the weight, but they can experience the steps and the process by their own rather than a test. So that is something which is a beautiful area to explore into when it comes to learning and development and gamification. Apart from that, I would also like to add, like, no, of course, I mean, both of them already covered, the leadership board, the badges, certificates, and all. But there could be also an area of introducing AI, artificial intelligence, into learning scenario. So maybe we come across some discussion in the phase two as you were describing, Nisha. I'll try to highlight few areas on integrating AI into the learning mode.
Well, that was brilliant, Hiral. I mean, while you were saying, I could, actually practically feel myself, holding the fire extinguisher and, at present, make myself feel comfortable that yes, I'm in certain environment. Because in my previous organization, I have been a part of such a learning. And back then, like other, whenever we used to have these safety drills and other kind of learning, they never realized the importance of how important gamification is when you incorporate them into your regular learnings and the training, the mandatory training specifically. I'm going to take
So
this point, Hiral, and in my
I'll
current
just add
organization
one more thing,
also.
Nisha. I'll just
Yeah.
add one more thing. Even in my previous organization, we are practicing the AR and the VR thing in terms of induction. So when we are talking about onboarding people, orientation, the primary induction. So there is a group level induction where where we want to give them an immersive experience of how Wellspin is, what are the plans, how is the manufacturing going on. So it's not practically viable for taking each and every employee from different locations to the plant and make them see that how it is working. So we have created the immersive modules for the induction so that every person can experience how things are being done at that level. So it's not only safety, but you can also look at from the onboarding and the induction module.
Well said, Hiral. And thank you so much for those insights. And I'm sure after the points, important points you've discussed and other panelists also that they have shared, we are going to take immense full insights from this session. And it's really going to be helpful. Thank you, Hiral, for that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next panelist, who is Rohini. Hi, Rohini. Okay,
Hello, Nisha.
so hi. So my question is for you. Do you think there could be any reason, uh, activities where learning and development should not use gamification? All this while we were talking about, using gamification, but any area where we could not use. What do you think?
I'm so happy with all the answers so far because it's also given me some areas to really ponder on and go back and say, hey, we could do this. I really like the way that Hiral really explained the whole thing with the scenario and Banu and Sarath also. Great to hear that real time you all are practicing this and so much of takeaway. Definitely, I would like to say that initially when gamification was widely applied, it was done without much consideration of specific context, and that led to over gamified experiences. I'm sure that you must have heard about it or we would have seen it in some way or the other. And gamification may not suit all type of experiences or learning experiences, especially emotional topics like leadership development were not very well aligned initially. So because gamification was so new and LMS and LXVs and everything, we wanted to just bring it in every kind of learning. And these typical learnings required personal insights and more emotional intelligence or self-awareness, where you know it may not resonate or that game-based approach was not well aligned. So giving more insights to overall gamification was very important. But I think now it's more clearer to us that it's more suited for task-based learning, like even the compliance learnings that Hiral was talking about, or a technical skill building, or even a routine training like a onboarding training that we heard about. So where the repetition or the engagement is so important, and we are also looking at a practical application of what do we do after this gamified learning. However, some of the sensitive topics, like I said, whether it's leadership or ethics or even diversity, inclusion, mental health topics, where if gamification mechanisms are applied, it might just detract from the seriousness that is required of the content. So as L&D professionals, to me, it has always been very important to be mindful of when and where gamification truly adds value. And if we can have better guidelines on how to apply it and when to avoid it, I think that is something that we always have an opportunity to decide when we are building that whole storyboarding for any given workshop. And over the last decade or so, when we've used gamification, we have been able to very clearly determine that, okay, this is not where I want to use gamification, or this is where it really enhances the experience and I want to just make sure that it rounds up the whole thing. I hope that answers the question, Nisha.
Very well said, Rohini. Thank you so much. Equally, when we are using a particular feature, gamification, like a feature like that, so equally it's important for us also to know as to where it's not required at the same time, and how to use it, where not to use it, where we need to stop. I think that is something as an L&D professional, we all, I'm sure we all would agree with that. Yeah, thank you so much for those brilliant insights. Without any further ado, I'll move on to our next segment, which is implementing gamification for enhancing learning experiences without relying on points and badges. So I'll just, in a nutshell, I'll explain to you all what exactly we mean by this. So next we are moving on to the basics of points and badges and leaderboards. So focusing on innovative approaches that make learning more engaging and rewarding without these traditional elements. Okay. So my next question from the segment two is to Rohini.
Yes, Nisha.
Yeah. So, Rohini, how can we enhance learning experiences using alternative gamification elements?
So, Nisha, I have to agree that I'm a big fan of leaderboard and batches and everything. I think there is definitely so much to take back, and we see L&D professionals all the time enhancing and leveraging this opportunity. However, we need to also have so many alternatives because at the end of the day, L&D has to show a lot of business value. And if everything is only automated and through the system, we are somewhere missing out on some of the business side of, uh, say, the objective that we need to capture on. So my point here would be to focus on intrinsic motivators and also make learning more meaningful, right? So in that, of course, we did cover that, all the three accomplished panelists also have been relying on scenario-based learning and also storytelling to engage in real-world challenges. Because, when we hear for example, Hiral was talking about, how the blue collar people, they had that experience when they were wearing the headset. It's beautifully explained, right? So when we are using the power of storytelling, it stands much beyond just the leaderboard competition. There is so much that we could get from scenario based and storytelling, wherein the approach of learning process itself is more immersive and relatable, and that there is deeper connection because overall, when we are looking at problem solving scenarios, we are also fostering critical thinking or decision making and making the whole impact that is much higher than the surface level gamified learning. So while I would agree, and I'm sure that all of you would agree to this, that our intention or the aim is definitely to make the learning process more engaging and relevant, which we are doing by the personalized experiences, great tools and platforms. We were, in fact, I was just trying to find out which tools everybody else is using as well. So we are focusing on individual development plans, but I would definitely want to look at gamification as an effective element and look for collaborative learning, so wherein, for example, task-based learning or even a team-based learning, wherein we are focusing on collective achievement as a team to solve problem or reach a milestone, so that it promotes a lot more than just that one individual engagement, but also we're looking at cross-functional collaboration or sharing knowledge in this scenario.
Wonderful, Rohini. Thank you so much for those lovely insights. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to our next panelist for a question to you, Banu. Okay, so what different engaging learning experiences can be designed using gamification apart from using points and badges?
Thank you, Nisha. I think Rohini did cover a few aspects, right? Few approaches like storytelling and team-based learning, which focuses on collaboration. The other approaches, I would say, would definitely be role playing. Because role plays really allow learners to step into different personas in simulating real-world situations. I think this approach is particularly effective for leadership training, especially when we train first-time managers on topics like coaching or giving feedback, having effective one-on-one conversations with their team members, and also to prepare them for performance appraisal conversations. I think role plays really come in handy, or also for customer service training where learners can practice handling challenging scenarios in a safe environment, right? So by acting as decision makers or stakeholders themselves, learners can experience immediate feedback and consequences of the choices that they've made. So I think also simulations also create an interactive learning space that's highly relevant and practical. And one other thing we can do is also to create challenges, where we can have problem solving puzzles, which encourages, people to, be more creative in resolving that issue. For example, say in a project management course, learners can be given a simulated project with limited resources and say unexpected obstacles, which demands them to strategize, collaborate, and find solutions to succeed, right? So that could also be one other thing. And creating levels can be another one, right? Because we talk about badges and rewards, but beyond that, levels also really helps people to, go to different stages of mastery. This will represent their journey and gives them a clearer sense of progression. So accompanying maybe this with visual progress bars can help learners to see how close they are to achieving their goals. And this also builds momentum and motivates them to push further. I think the emphasis here is on growth and achievement more rather than the instant rewards that they get. So these are some of the approaches that I can think of. And if you see, the LMSs also come with these features added on, right? I was just giving an example before starting the panel where the LMS that we use, Seismic, also the one that we piloted a few weeks back, Showpad, come with a feature where sales execs can practice their pitches. They can also submit their pitches, and this goes to their managers. The recording goes to their managers, and the managers give feedback in real time. Right. So this really helps speed up the functional onboarding process for the sales folks, and they're more than confident to handle their first calls. Right. So these are some of the approaches that I can think of, Nisha.
Thank you so much, Banu. I couldn't agree more. And as you correctly said, that other than rewards and those badges that they see, especially with problem-solving puzzles, in a critical courses like the tasks like project management, and also to add to Rohini what she said, when you're in a task-based or a situation or a team-based learning, so where you see for yourself your progress bar, moving upwards and where exactly your gray areas are, rather than someone else coming and telling you to improve, you take the ownership at hand and you see how you can possibly rectify that. So I think that is an excellent way, especially for adults, to keep the learning pace and the momentum going on. So thank you so much for that. My next question is for our panelist, Mr. Sharath. Okay, so what would be the benefits of non-profit non-point based gamification?
Thank you for that very relevant question, Nisha. And some of my esteemed co-panelists today have already covered some of these points, but to build on to what has been discussed earlier, right? So first benefit, major benefit that comes into mind when it comes to non-point based gamification is the immersive learning experience. Now, what is the issue with the points and badges? It doesn't anyway enhance the existing content. Whatever existing content you consume, that you get points associated to it. You do more courses, you might get a daily learning badge or some badges associated to it. But the important question is, the most important thing is the actual content. You are not doing anything to enhance the actual content with the just the points and the normal gamification. Now that can happen through immersive learning experience like simulations, virtual reality, augmented reality, etc. It changes the experience of the actual content from basic to next level. So it gives a really immersive learning experience. That's a primary benefit that comes to the mind. And the next important thing is intrinsic motivation, right? Intrinsic motivation. So when it comes to a pure point-based reward system, it's a extrinsic motivation. You feel that, hey, let me do the courses somehow so that I can accumulate the points and then use the points just to convert them into rewards or vouchers. So the actual learning, does that happen there? No. So the real idea behind gamification is for the person to actually learn something, and they can really improve their knowledge, improve their skills, not just monetary benefits, right? So that intrinsic motivation to learn, it comes with an immersive experience. So let's say, as Banu was giving some examples, like you give them some tough tasks through simulations. So that will motivate them intrinsically to do better. Hey, I should be able to do better. Let me overcome that obstacle. So it kind of gets the child inside you to come out as well. It's a good thing. So like how you normally say when it comes to storytelling, right? Why does the storytelling work? Because inside we are all kids. We love to hear stories, right? So something like that. Why does gamification work? Inside we are all kids. We love playing games, and we get that sense of gratification when we finish levels, when we complete levels, when we see obstacles and we try to power them. So that gives us a lot of motivation. Now that applied to learning, that can give us the true learning, right? The employee, they really upskill themselves. And then another important benefit is the hyper collaboration. I wouldn't say just mere collaboration, right? It's like hyper collaboration, like how our panelist Hiral was saying, like there's a factory setup, there is a white collar office setup, and then all of the employees, and then with the current remote environment. There are people working from home. So everybody collaborating like in a hyper communicative environment. That's what a simulation can do. That's what a virtual reality can do. So that will take the collaborations and communications to next level, the teamwork to the next level, right? And then next thing is personalized learning instead of a one size fits all. So now currently, most of the times what happens, you have a standard course, a standard content, and then it is assumed that everybody would benefit from that. But actually what happens, everybody's personality is different, everybody's style is different, what they are looking for, what expectations are, the objectives from the learning itself can be different. Now, this can be made into a very personalized experience through the use of advanced AI. So maybe initially the AI could ask the questions, what are your objectives? What are you trying to learn from this course? And then based on the responses, the actual content itself can be changed accordingly, right? Or there are multiple content uploaded and then the AI chooses, okay, for this personality, this particular content makes more sense. So now there it's amazing personalized learning experience that will give it doesn't make it boring. Otherwise currently how much ever good the content is, some of them find it very interesting, some of them find it very boring. Now, why does that happen? Because it's the same content for everybody. Now with the personalized learning experience, probably that could also be sorted out. And now when it comes to AI based assessments, now the current assessments, what happens is it's like just pure memorizing is enough for them to go to the next level. They may not have actually learned anything. They might just memorize. Okay, this is the right option C. This is the right option B. They do not learn anything really. But with AI enabled assessments, you have a persona answering your questions, or let's say there is a test that's coming up and you can actually try mock tests with this AI based persona. Can you help me learn? And that person asks the question. So imagine the level of learning. It's like Viva, right? When you are doing engineering or in college and or in school, you have this Viva questions. How much ever you are prepared, when suddenly they ask the question, you forget everything. Now that type of practice can be enhanced with the help of AI based assessments. So your confidence level increases. You actually try to learn and the assessments get better. And then of course the augmented reality, that is an amazing concept in the current scenario, because you are incorporating real world things along with virtual. Again, coming to different personalities, some people may not just like cartoonish things or just everything virtual. They want something to connect with actual reality. So that's where the augmented reality beautiful concept comes in, and it can be really immersive learning experience. So these are some of the major benefits I feel from the non-point based gamification. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharad, for that. That was really brilliant and wonderful insights shared about how personalized learning can help one achieve, can convert that into an immersive learning, and how brilliantly it can help one achieve their goals also. So I also personally feel that yes, from personalized learning too, it can help one individual achieve their personal goals as well as their professional goals if utilized and used in the right manner and practiced as well. Thank you so much, Sharad, for that. Now moving on to our next panelist, that's Hiral. So Hiral, I have a question for you. Do you see non-point based gamification becoming the major implementation of gamification in the future?
Thanks, Nisha. I think I have a lot of content to build up on this question for sure. So I think we should go back to the learning method or the types of learner if we talk about. So there are child learner and you have an adult learner. Particularly when we are talking about adult learners, that's the corporate scenario. We have Gen Zs, the impatient generation. We have a mix of millennials, Gen Zs all around. They want the result right away. So I think gamification is what they have seen in their childhood, and it's very casual. So what Sharath mentioned, introducing the non-point based elements to the learning zone. And also looking forward, like, when we were discussing before we started, was also about like the industry is now thinking of investing more into learning, because there are impacts that are required. That is, technical impact, the knowledge enhancement, the functional knowledge enhancement, and tech adoption is like, everywhere. So if I talk about AI based learning, I have very real life examples to share. So at Wellspin, we have integrated AI based prompting into our LMS. So the LMS takes the feed from your search engine, whatever you have searched into, and it will give you the prompt for the next program. So as you're looking into project management, you'll get something relevant to it in the next way. So it is addressing to the adult psychology. That is, what is in it for me. So if I've seen something as part one, the part two is prompted. So I'm inclined to go and click on part two and learn from there. So that is something which is there at Wellspin right now. And not just because I'm a part of the organization, but I think I'm sharing an experience of what people are sharing from the learning perspective. So there's also a feature of AI based coaching. So we have some simulated scenarios into that AI tool, where how to discuss with the clients, how to manage difficult conversations, how to tell your team members about some feedback, taking feedbacks. So the AI has been trained in such a way that when a person goes into and starts the conversation, there's a pre scenario brief that is provided, and then you start. So I tried it 3 4 scenarios for myself on the conflict management and resolution, and trust me, the AI was just behaving like a human to me, with all the possible excuses, responses, and a very very erratic customer feeling type of thing. And then when you're responding at end of the conversation, it gives you a report, what went well, what could be better. So this personalized feeling, that's the beauty of tech that can be integrated into the learning thing. So that personalized feedback that you get, which probably is difficult in a group learning. So peer learning has its own beauty, and individual learning also has its own charm to maintain. So this is something which comes as a coaching for an individual on particularly managing difficult scenarios. So behavioral interventions, when we are talking about this, is something which we are using. Also, we are in process of developing something for assessments. So competency assessments, which is, I think, an industry requirement. Every time we end up into some competency tool, there's an assessor, then you have case studies, you have role plays, and there are some assessments that are done. So training the AI on these capabilities help expedite this process and make it scalable. So what happens is the candidate is exposed to the scenarios that an assessor would do it, and will evaluate in a similar way that an assessor would do it. So again, linking those role plays on a system to a audio video based capturing and giving you personalized feedback. So we have already we are going to launch a tool for interviewing. So the interview by bot is something that we are launching, and the same tool, the features are going to be, we are exploring the capabilities to integrate into the competency assessments, into behavioral assessments, into psychometric and the functional assessments. The more we train, so it's a concept of AI and ML. The more you train, the more better it becomes, and it can be scaled up. So the primary impact that we want to bring in through learning is something can be done through non-gamified, and this could be the gamification of future, because it's far beyond the points. It's far beyond. Collecting certificates. It's more about what is in it for me. It's answering the question, what is in it for me, and what next? What can I do more? So, yep, that's what I could give a light on it.
Well, thank you so much, Hiral. That was really wonderful to listen to you, and especially the points that you've shared. And I'm sure it's going to make a huge impact. Okay, so now we are going to move on to our next segment, which is the third segment, number three. In this, we will talk about ethical implications of gamification. Okay, so now gamification can be a powerful tool, but it comes with ethical considerations. So, in this segment, we are going to discuss the moral and psychological implications of applying gamification in a learning environment. So, my first question on segment three is for Sharath. So, Sharath, what do you think are the main ethical concerns that the gamification world is experiencing right now?
Thank you, Nisha. A very relevant and important question indeed. Whoever is implementing gamification need to keep the ethical aspects into a picture as a primary concern. Now, the first thing that comes when it comes to ethical aspects is something called as exploitation of behavioral psychology. Now, gamification works around behavioral psychology, right? So it tries to bring out the child in you. It tries out to bring out the cheerfulness in you, the happiness you get when you complete a game, or it can be addictive. It is kind of an exploitation of something called as a behavioral psychology. So that over exploitation can happen when it comes to the aspects of gamification. Instead of actual learning elements, it might actually tap into something else. It's like an addiction, right? There are some certain forms of addiction. So instead of actually health benefits, it gives you more, a negative implications. So something like that can happen when you do too much of exploitation of behavioral psychology. And now there's something called as bad competition. Right? So there's something called as healthy competition, and then there can be a bad competition as well among the peers. You have all the data available, you have everything there, and then sometimes the hyper collaboration happens. The competition can get too competitive, and it can become like a bad competition. It might create anxiety, it might create burnout. Very important. So these days you see news every other day of employees losing their lives due to stress and anxiety. It's very sad to see. So now something, a system that adds on to the anxiety, we don't want that. So we need to be very cautious there. And then next concern that comes to my mind is the data privacy and surveillance. So it can be, too much of surveillance. Each and every move is getting captured somewhere. Let's say there's a virtual environment where the character moves from where to where, and then even based on that, there is a possibility that behavioral characteristic traits of the person is also extracted, and the report goes to the management or other stakeholders. What if the person doesn't want that? It's kind of infringement of privacy by tapping into too much of such options, right? The person is not being asked whether is it okay for us to share this information to others. What if the person doesn't want so much of their personal information to be visible out there or to be shared with others? So that is a problem. The privacy is a problem. Too much of surveillance can be a problem. Now, when it comes to social means, for example, there are certain scenarios where to improve the onboarding experience, virtual onboarding experience of employees when they're working remotely. So they are put into virtual avatars, and then they say there's an option where other avatars can come approach you and then try to chat with you, talk to you. What if the person is not okay with that? What if the person has chosen the remote work because they have the anxiety problem? They do not want this hyper collaboration. So what happens there? So that's then the question of equity and fairness comes into picture. Is it for everybody? Is it like a one shoe fits for all? It's not gonna work, right? So you have to consider equity and fairness. You have to get the consent from the people. Is it okay? The tool should really give the options in the beginning instead of directly putting them into an environment where the people are not okay, right? And then there's something called as superficial learning. Now, what is superficial learning? Let's say a company designs a gamification like just like a pure game, like how you see in playstations. It has happened. So I've been seeing some of the videos where the gamification element is so high. It's like the company is not into space exploration, first of all, right? And then it is like the person is on a space suit, they go into the space station, and then they should know some information, then they get the space suit, then they have to watch a video and then answer some questions, then they get into the shuttle, and then they get to go to another planet. Now what happens is something called a superficial learning. The person enjoys the space aspects of things. The company is not into space exploration. The actual intent is for them to watch the content or the actual documents that have been read, and they answer the assessments. They're just purely superficially doing it so that they can move on to the next level. It's pure tapping the kid within the person instead of, that's called superficial learning. The superficial learning can be very dangerous. You have to design the experience in such a way that it resonates with the company as well, and the actual information also should be interesting. Then the actual learning happens, not just going to the next level and just tapping the inner child to see what is the next level. So that is one main ethical concern. And then here comes the picture of addiction and over engagement. The person can even get addicted to something like this. Oh, okay, this is so interesting. They might even consume courses which are not so relevant for them, just to enjoy this experience of, answering the questions and moving to the next level. So that is kind of an addiction. You can see, you might have seen a lot of such cases coming from countries like Korea, China, and Japan, where over addiction or gamification is a huge problem. Now, that also needs to be kept in mind. And then there are certain things like what is being mandatory, what are optional. Like, for example, there are certain companies which makes the personas mandatory. You join a virtual environment, you have to take a selfie, and then the persona will have your face roaming around in the virtual environment. Of course, it is good for an extrovert, probably, or somebody who loves social interactions and who's absolutely okay with it. But something like this, if it is being mandated, again, consent is very important of the person. Not everybody might like it. So these are some of the major ethical concerns that comes into mind as far as gamification is concerned, and should definitely be kept into mind while designing something like this to the company. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sharad. That was really insightful, and I agree. I mean, I couldn't agree more as to, what all you said. So, understanding that gamification is an important aspect in L&D, but we also need to understand if it's not serving the purpose for the user. So, there's no point in continuing with that. So, rather, we would change the way we are presenting it for the audience in order to enhance learning, rather than, instead of making them addicted, like, and just to with the intent of bringing out the inner child and helping them learn. But if it's not taking them to the right path where we want them to go, then I think it's not serving the purpose. Well, the point was shared was really well. Thank you so much for that. Now my next question is for Rohini. So Rohini, have you ever come across any unethical gamification practices, or heard of the same?
I have, in fact, and Nisha, it's so nice to also hear from Sharad, because most of my
Mm-hmm.
points were almost in line with what he has already spoken about, and I think I'm just going to reiterate a lot of points that he's already covered with my own experience that I've had. So especially in the early instances of gamification, there was a lot of unhealthy competition through leaderboard and awards, wherein there was a lot of pressure created on learners. And I'm sure that Sharad has already spoken about it, but the idea was to game the system itself and derail from the whole long-term skill development. And there was more manipulation. I just read the other day, there's something called dark design. I'm like, okay, now what is this? So the manipulation tactics have gone to another level, wherein sometimes when we are referring to dark gamification, or we are talking about gamification that is biased, and how do you really create group level biased gamifications. So people are going to another level of competition, which was never the intent of why gamification became popular in L&D in the first place, and what was the intent throughout. And there's just so much of over reliance on extrinsic reward, and the whole motivation is now so overemphasized and over dependent in that short term engagement, and we are somehow losing that whole aspect of deep learning. But again, while that manipulation bit is so concerning, and it's worth reiterating to just top up what Sharad just said, I also want to talk about the ethical concerns in data privacy. And, because we're collecting so much data, there's a lot of data that we collect, store, and we also use data. So that whole learner autonomy and fairness is so important, and it needs to be the forefront of gamified learning. Otherwise, as L&D professionals, somewhere, if we are designing these practices, we are losing that focus of that whole inclusive gamification, or inclusive gamified learning or experience that we wanted to create in the first place. And that whole environment that we create in short-term reward-based practices may create some unethical concerns in the whole experience.
Absolutely. Well said, Rohini. Thank you so much. And now moving on to Banu, our next panelist. So, Banu, how do you think these concerns can be handled effectively?
Thank you, Risha. I think Sharath and Rohini have brilliantly listed down, all these unethical practices that we're coming across. And I'll take a stab at how we can, how organizations can, address these issues, right? So one point that they made was about unnecessary or unhealthy competition, right? Probably something in the lines of collaborative gamification would help. Instead of individual challenges, probably companies could promote team-based challenges that can leverage game mechanics, right? So one other thing is in terms of manipulation and exploitation of learners is another point that they spoke about. I think here the primary objective should be to design things that will encourage learners rather than just creating that dopamine loop where learners are just chasing points or rewards, right? And for data privacy and surveillance, I think it's pretty straightforward. To mitigate these risks, I think organizations need to be transparent about the data they are collecting, right? And how it's being used. Learners should also be informed about what data is being gathered, and they should have control over what is being shared if there is an external party involved, right? And the entire loop of this reward system itself, how do we address that? Is to make sure that we are using rewards thoughtfully, because all these rewards should be tied to meaningful accomplishments and milestones, right? Not just participation. Also, it's crucial to design gamified system that emphasize on self-improvement, right? Rather than just kind of running behind the rewards and all the external motivators that we're talking about, right? And when we talk about inclusivity here, it's important to, I think this is really key for all L&D professionals, because it's important to design gamified systems that are accessible to all learners, right? So this means considering the diverse needs of learners, whether it's say different learning styles or technological accesses or varying levels of prior knowledge that they come with. So gamification should offer multiple pathways for success, allowing learners to engage with the content in ways that match their unique circumstances, right? And the final one where they spoke about was the burnout and the over engagement. So I think gamification should be used in moderation, right? And the system should be designed to encourage balance. For instance, incorporating regular breaks and promoting self-paced learning and designing challenges that don't lead to cognitive overload or are some of the important considerations, I would say. And learners should also be encouraged to focus on long-term growth rather than just the short-term achievements that come with it. So hope I've been able to cover all the concerns that have been listed down by Rohini and Sharath, and how we can deal with it effectively as an organization or as L&D professionals.
I think Banu, that was, brilliantly put to what you and Rohini especially, even you said. So overdose, I mean, I would like to, use a little casual language here. Overdose of everything, I think that would lead to a disaster, even if it's a beautiful tool like gamification. So I think we as L&D professionals, we need to be really, careful as to, how much are we implementing this and how much do we want our audience to be engaged also. Just to ensure that they don't get digressed and, the main purpose is met. Great. Thank you so much, Banu, for those insights, and Rohini as well. Okay, my next question is for Hiral from the panelist. So, Hiral, do you think gamification can in any way be a hindrance in, implementing DEI practices?
Okay, that's interesting. We're moving from ethics to the DE, and I think you very well quoted. Anything in excess is not good. So I don't think gamification is going to hinder any of the practices. In fact, if we see the future, or if I address and if I continue from the last point which I spoke, was if we are introducing AI and ML into learning, I think that's going to make it more personalized and more effective for creating the DEI culture through learning environment. Talking about few relevancy, of course, we need to be cautious at the time of designing those gamified learnings, which should be, of course, keeping in mind the senses. It should be friendly for the PWDs. It should be friendly for the language should be very specific, which is not annoying or irritating anybody from any gender. So there has to be a lot of inclusive vocabulary that will be playing a role when we are talking about including the DEI part through gamification. But I think with a lot of technology available, this is going to enhance in a better way as compared to the dependency that we had in the traditional way. So, we had to think a lot, and there'll still be a chance that we'll miss out something. But having the AI tools in place, I think those language portions can be taken care of. The personalization and past learnings can be integrated over here. Some case studies can be taught upon, and those can make learning more prettier than it would be earlier. So I think gamification using the technology is going to add value to drive the DEI rather than doing anything else over there. Also, we should not forget, like, whatever we discussed earlier, we talked about different modes of gamification, the non-point based gamification. So when we are talking about simulations, we are talking about immersive experiences, we are talking about role plays and the storytelling part of the, learning. I think all these things are going to create more inclusivity, and it's going to add to it rather than going against or make any deviation from what it is giving a look in the future.
Absolutely. Well said, Hiral. And I think that really sums up well as to the number of things that could be a hindrance. But yes, if done it in the right way, so I think technology will definitely add value to the gamification, way of learning. And thank you so much for that. Okay, so now we move on to our next segment number 4. Okay, so in this, we talk about the future challenges and opportunities in gamification. Okay, so what challenges and opportunities lie ahead of gamification in L&D, and how can we continue to innovate while ensuring positive outcomes? So for this segment, my first question is to Rohini. So Rohini, how easy or difficult would it be for the L&D to implement learning using gamification to enhance cross-functional collaboration?
Thank you, Nisha. I think this is a very much business aligned question because one is cross functional, the other one is collaboration, and the way that we are looking at L&D, we are looking at building skill based organizations. We want to see organizations that are focused on building better competencies. It's not just about the roles or the number of years of experience. So now when people are skilled in different specializations, and then we are looking at cross-functional collaboration. We are looking at a lot of skills that we want to put together. So that gives us a great pattern or a matrix. Now think about gamification. So both this looks like both an opportunity and a challenge to me. On one hand, it presents a fantastic way to bring diverse teams together, build a great team-based gamified challenge, or create that environment where employees from different functions can share their knowledge, solve problems collectively. This breaks down the organization's silos and promotes a great culture of collaboration and innovation, which is so important for a skill-based organization. Now, these challenges also allow the employees to contribute in their own unique expertise and gain insights from each other. If this is done in a very holistic problem solving, gamified learning or a design put together, and we have to just consider the diverse skill sets of every team, and so that it doesn't lead to any disengagement or feeling of frustration. However, I also see a challenge in this whole thing that, while we are looking at collaborative tasks, they have to be meaningful and well structured. That is why gamification element it's just so important to be careful about how we are aligning this with the goals of the cross-functional collaboration, so that the teams feel that their contribution is equally valued and the tasks must be relevant to their roles and expertise as well. So basically, I'm just trying to strike a balance, and in the current organization with Infovision and also with previous organization, we've had a lot of opportunities to work on internal mobility with the employees who go to bench and then go back to project. So with these kind of big groups, it's so important to drive innovation and also boost that team dynamics when we are looking at enhancing organizational performance through cross-functional collaborations.
I think equally I would say it's challenging as well as a great learning, when we are involving cross-functional collaboration, when we are introducing gamification in different ways of learning. But thank you so much, Rohani. You've put it up in really in nice way. Thank you so much. So my next question is for our next panelist, who is Hiral. So Hiral, do you think gamification can address behavioral change personally as well as socially? So if yes, then how? Or if no, then why do you think?
I completely agree. It's going to impact a lot of things in terms of personal as well as social change. So I'll give you few examples for personal as well as the social behavioral change. So first of all, I think whatever we discussed so far, we have constantly been repeating on intrinsic motivation, and that is creating an habit formation. So no gamification by collecting rewards. Going for streaks, having certificates. This is creating a habit for learning. So it's a consistency in a behavior that can be seen towards learning. So maybe out of 10 things, the person is able to retain two or three, but that three is also possible because of that 10. So that habit formation has made this personal change towards changing the mind towards learning rather than doing nothing or doing something else or doing some other activities over there. Number two could be setting goals. So, when we are setting goals and targets for ourselves, like, I personally have a practice of setting a self-learning goal of 30 minutes on daily basis. So before going to bed. So this is my personal experience as gamification. So I'm a part of that gamification app. So it gives me that, no, you have a target for 30 minutes to learn. So before going to bed, this is a practice I ensure that I don't miss that because I'm missing my streak if I miss that. So that is creating an habit of learning. So it's an motivation, and of course, it's at times it becomes a tick box because I want to achieve that streak, but it's just at times. Most of the times, it ensures that I'm learning out of it because the moment you see the content, it is going to pull me into that. So after you reach the platform, it is the content that continues to enhance that beauty. So that's about goal setting. It also helps you to track yourself on the learning journey. So it facilitates the monitoring activity. So if we are having some tools to capture, it gives me an idea that know how long I have been into learning, what number of hours I'm spending towards my self development. Because when we are into the office, we are purely into our operations here and there, and then L&D is the function which keeps on beating around the bush and no, just go and finish this learning, go and achieve this target, your this is due, this is pending. This scenario slightly changes, and it happens that I'm not able to log in. Can you help me with the credential? I'm not able to finish this. Can you fix this bug? So the change, the shift, the cultural shift is coming in terms of adoption to that technology. Talking about the social changes that can be enabled through gamification, it is about creating the influences. So I'll say it's peer influence. If I'm learning today, I'm going to influence somebody tomorrow because I've earned 5 batches, I've earned so many certificates. So there's a comparison that that triggers a human mind that if so and so person is able to do it, why can't I do it? So that is also something that's a positive influence that can be created as a social behavior change that can be there. It also creates, so there are a lot of platforms which come up with community engagement things. So you can create groups and you can create some learning plans for the group and then go ahead with it. So that can be a project based. So like sometime back Banu was talking about the project simulation. So those things can be accumulated. So it can be a community. So distance cannot separate you in that zone. So that is something which can be a social change. So though we are apart in terms of locations, but we can be connected through the practices. And last, of course, not the least, but yeah, we can achieve a cultural shift in terms of challenging and reshaping the attitudes and approach towards developing individuals. So, which is slightly not, maybe it was not a very prime focus in the initial days when L&D was created as a separate vertical, but it is now today definitely a very important element in organizations, and particularly I relate relate it more because Wellspin, it's like, what is the impact we are driving through all the initiatives? It's not about quantity, it's about the quality of impact. So this itself says that this is a behavioral change. So it is not numbers. It is all about what is the impact. How are we developing or uplifting the individuals in the organization? How do we give them the cross-functional, challenges and make them elevate more? So these gamification modules actually add value to create these impact in the in this particular vertical.
Absolutely. Well said, Hiral. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, you correctly said how it can, address behavioral change. And I could, personally relate to it. Before becoming an L&D professional, I used to follow these apps, and try to set goals, just read a couple of books here and there. And, probably I had grabbed something, from the earlier pages. And I tried, and then later on when I got into L&D, I realized, okay, that was one form of gamified learning, which I it was a self-paced learning which I did for myself, and that really helped me. So though it's a small change, but you can see how beautifully it has impacted individuals socially as well as professionally in their behavior. And I would say over a period of years, how game when the moment gamification has entered L&D, it's not only just impacted lives, but it has also helped us condition and make a huge transformation about the way we perceive things, we understand, we learn, especially with knowledge. It has made a huge change. So thank you so much, Hirul, for that, for sharing such beautiful insights. My next question on segment 4 is for Sharath. So, Sharath, what integration of augmented reality and virtual reality, or AI integration, pose in any challenges on implementation level? What do you think?
Would? I think it shouldn't be would. I think the answer is it will. Now the level, I think, would depend on the current maturity level of the company. But the challenges are definitely going to be there. It's not going to be easy because something new, especially if the company is newly adopting to this, right? Now, the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to the challenges of integration is the technical infrastructure. The technical infrastructure should be really strong, and now it depends upon how advanced you're planning to implement in the company. So if it's something very advanced simulation, for example, it's going to definitely require a very costly, expensive equipments. Like for example, if it is a heavy machinery company and you have a simulation built around a model of the machine itself, right? So how much it's going to cost? It's going to have a huge cost implication. And then it's not just the technical infrastructure, right? It's also about the cost and accessibility as well. Now what happens now, let's say with the current scenario of hybrid work culture, you have several employees who are working remotely. Not everybody are available in person in the company. So you have set up some beautiful experience there to be experienced in person at the company. What about the remote workforce? They're gonna miss out. So then what happens? You'll have to make sure that you cater to each of these target audience. You have something to be experienced in person in the company. You might have to replicate something similar virtually as well, isn't it? Otherwise, those who are working remotely is absolutely gonna miss that. Now, when it comes to accessibility, it was already told before as well. We need to cater to all types of learners, right? For example, there might be certain learners who might be photosensitive, and you have all these strobing lights sort of effects when it comes to virtual environment, etc. They are going to be sensitive to that. Or there might be certain learners who might have some hearing impairment, or you need to make sure that there is some sort of solution for everybody. So just one system itself is going to have a huge technical and cost implication, and now you'll have to replicate something similar for different target audience, whether they are remote or whether they are in person, whether based on their other needs as well. So it's going to have a huge implication. And now coming to the learning curve for the users as well as the developers. This is something fairly new. Gamification, the artificial intelligence, the VR, AR, they're all fairly new. But whereas L&D as a function has been there since so many years. So they're used to a particular system. They're used to a particular way of accessing the tool. They're used to a particular way of completing a course. And now for the learners as well, it's going to be a huge change in learning curve. They have to come to terms with what is the new way going forward, whether they'll be really comfortable from going away from the legacy system to an absolutely new system. Now that's going to be a challenge. They'll have to maybe given a lot of hand holding, especially those employees who are there in the company for so many years. One of the panelists spoke about Gen X, Y, Z. What about the Gen X and the earlier generations are going to definitely need a lot more of hand holding because they might be used to the legacy systems for years together. So it's a huge learning curve. Now think about the developers, those who actually have to develop the content. Maybe the in-house team may not be enough. The in-house team will be used to creating content a certain way, a basic video, basic sort of assessments, and now you're asking a huge ask of simulations and virtual environments. It's going to be a huge learning curve for the developers also. Now, if you want to develop an in-house team capable to do that, how much of additional resources you have to put in, how much of additional cost implication would that have to bring them up to speed? That is going to be huge. So again, yeah, coming to content creation and maintenance, when it comes to L&D, whatever content is the reversioning, right? The version keeps changing. You have newer versions, you need to release the newer versions every time. Why? Either the technology itself would have changed. Let's say if it's a technology, the next version would have come 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. You need to keep updating the content. Otherwise, let's say you're using one particular system for years together. For example, POS training or harassment awareness programs. This has to be done every year, right? Now if you use the same content every year, it's going to be pretty boring, and learners might lose the engagement very fast. So you need to reversion, you have to keep reinventing the wheel, right? You have to come to speed in terms of reversioning, new content creation. It's going to be very challenging from the legacy system, right? Because you might have to depend on some specialized content creators, because your in-house team may not be capable enough to develop such high intensive content. So you need to keep depending on the external, and then the time factor is going to come into picture. It's going to be a huge challenge when it comes to reversioning and maintenance of the content. And then there is something called as balancing the realism and the learning objectives. Sometimes you go so much into the gamification world that you forget about what actually is the learning objective. Like the space example I was saying, right? Though it creates a lot of interest in the person, the actual learning objectives are not met. So that is going to be a huge challenge. You need to make sure that though you're moving to a new system, it should still have the flavor of the company, the culture of the company. You should not move away, because culture is going to be the same, right? So you need to make sure that you do not lose the actual flavor of the organization itself when you are trying to move to a completely new system. So that is important. So you need to balance the realism and the learning objectives. And of course, the ethical concerns, right? That was already spoken earlier as well. When it comes to the usage of artificial intelligence or any sort of ethical concern, that's going to be a huge concern. Not just in the legacy system, already there were a lot of ethical concerns when it comes to L&D. But now with the integration of the AR, VR, AI, it's going to be several fold higher. So a lot of ethical concerns also that needs to be kept into picture. So I would say that, yeah, definitely there will be challenges, and though it depends on the level depends on the current maturity of the company and how much the company have already adopted or going to adopt. But especially when it comes to somebody who's newly moving to this field, it's definitely going to be very challenging. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sharath. And I believe with all those challenges, what a learner will go through, and even the L&D professionals I'll come across. So I think we would get to learn even more from these challenges to certain things which we can, avoid or skip, or probably, do better enhance the process maybe in the next time. But thank you so much, Sharath, for those insights. So now we are
Uh,
moving.
I'm extremely sorry to interrupt here, Nisha. Actually, we need to allow Rohini to move out. She has an important meeting lined up. She needs to hard
Okay.
stop at 4:30. So thank you so much, Rohini, for being a part. We would have loved to have you with us throughout, but thank you so much for your contributions, and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be a part of this insightful webinar, and especially to share the stage with such esteemed colleagues, because I got to learn so much today, and I've made some notes, and I'm sure to connect with all of you offline also. And it definitely was a true learning for me as well. And please continue your conversation. And I'm sorry, I need to exit for another meeting, but wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rohini.
Thank you. Yeah, Nisha, you can continue. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so my next question is for Bhanu. This is probably the last question for today, and this from the segment 4. So Bhanu, what do you think? How can organizations prepare for these challenges? So whatever we discussed so far.
So one basic thing would be to start small, right? Because Sharad did touch upon the cost implication that comes with implementing solutions in line with AR, VR, or AI. So starting small would really help to begin with a pilot program. This allows the organization to gauge learner reactions. It also helps them to measure effectiveness and identify any technical hurdles, right, without committing to a full-scale rollout. I think a small controlled environment will also help L&D teams to get comfortable with the technology that we're using. And the next big one is, I think both Rohini and Shal touched upon it, which is to align gamification with our learning goals. And for this, organizations should definitely start by identifying the core skills or knowledge areas, or most organizations have their competencies set out. So these knowledge areas that they want to develop and design gamified experiences that reinforce those, right? So that should be like the next one. And the last one I would say would be addressing diverse learning styles as well. All right, because some learners prefer collaboration while others enjoy discovery and exploration. If a gamified learning system only appeals to one type of learner, you risk disengaging a large portion of your audience, right? So it's important to understand different learner personas, right? And when designing gamified learning experiences, it's essential to incorporate elements, right, that appeal to each of these personas, right? For example, we have the achievers. For them, probably offering clear objectives, rewards, and levels of mastery, can be helpful for them. And for someone in the explorers category, providing them with freedom to explore content at their own pace would help. And if they are in the category of socializers, probably collaboration through discussion boards, team-based activities, and group achievements would help them, right? And there's this category, competitors. I think we all know what really kind of motivates them: leaderboards and badges, and recognition really supports them. I think by tailoring learning experiences to these different personas, L&D professionals can increase engagement and ensure that a variety of learner preferences and motivations are addressed. So that's in a nutshell of how we can address these issues, Nisha.
Thank you so much, Bhanu, for those insights and definitely the points that were discussed. And I'm sure these are, one of the good ways how we can deal with challenges, and also we can keep changing and to be better at it. So thank you so much for that. I would also like to thank each and every, panelist for sharing such wonderful insights. So without any further ado, I'll quickly summarize today's sessions. We spoke about how gamification is currently being used in the learning and development sphere, and also we talked about certain, core principles of gamification and how it fits into today's learning and development strategies. We also talked about moving beyond basics, or points, badges, and leaderboards, focusing on innovative approaches to make learning more engaging and rewarding even without these traditional elements. We also spoke about how gamification can be a powerful tool when but it also comes with certain ethical considerations. So in spite of that, how to deal with these ethical considerations and move ahead with the strategies.
Our speakers, Rohini, I mean, she's left, but thanks to her, Sharat, Banu, and Hiral, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and expertise today. Your contributions have truly enriched our understanding. I mean, I was really, really taken up by surprise the level to which we can work on gamification and how gamification can be used. You have actually shown us the immense potential that it holds to how we can transform how we learn, work, and interact. So I would also like to thank and extend my gratitude to our audience for joining us and participating in this important discussion. We have some questions coming up. So, Nisha, would you please take it up with the panel?
Sure. Have a first question from Sanjay Gopal Krishnan. So he says that isn't in-house resources better than external? The cost implication for an external vendor creating a 1 hour simulation, depending on difficulty level. So, based module is exorbitantly expensive versus someone who can do it in-house. So, this question is not really posed to a particular panelist, but I would like to, keep it open for all the panelists. Anyone would like to answer this question?
I can try it out. See, the first question was he mainly is concentrating here on cost implication, right? Of course, yes. When it comes to cost implication, it's going to be very expensive if you give it to an external expert. But I believe when it comes to the quality of the content, then definitely I think external would be better because there's no one what you can say perfect answer for this question. It depends on the scenario. Like for example, let's say it's something that has to be delivered very fast. External may not work because you need to give a lot of information, but just for them to analyze what is the requirement and to understand the requirement, they're going to take a lot of time. And then to create a personalized customized content for the company and then get back, yes, the time going to take us huge, the cost is going to be huge. If it's something that has to be delivered quickly, it anyway has to be done in-house. And if cost is a huge factor, then it has to be planned in-house. Now, if let's say you have enough time and you have enough budget, but then again, we do not have too much information here, like how good the in-house team is, how good their capabilities are, we do not know. But normally when it comes to external experts, what happens is they are into this field. Probably you'll give to a content creation vendor whose main bread and butter is content creation. So our company may not be a content creation company to have such an extensive or expert level in-house team. Whereas you give to an external content creation team, they're only into that. So probably the quality of the product that's going to come out is going to be much better. But yes, with the cost implication, with the time implication. So it depends on what the scenario is, and then you might have to take a call. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharad, for that. And I believe that has answered Sanjay's question. So we have our next question from Michael Joseph. He has posted two questions. The first one is for Banu. So Banu spoke about Dan Pink, the book, what he wrote, as long as the work or activity is based on rudimentary skills. Dan Pink theory would work, but anything beyond rudimentary skills, it had adverse results. So what are your comments on that, Banu?
Yeah. So, hi, Michael. I think this goes beyond rudimentary skills. In fact, there is this concept called as a FedEx day that people follow. Most organizations follow as well, where specifically what happens is 24 hours is given to the employees and they can choose any challenge, they can choose anyone on their team to work with. And but the objective is very simple. They have to come back the next day either with a prototype or with an idea, or they need to come back with a new process for something that's broken or something that's not working really well, right? So when we take such an example, which is again something from the book itself, right, it is definitely not for rudimentary skills. Someone who has the ability to change the process or come up with a prototype or come up with ideas is an employee who's definitely at a much higher level, and the skills that we are talking about are definitely advanced skills, right? So the response to your question would be this goes beyond rudimentary skills, because he specifically talks about three intrinsic motivators, which is mastery, purpose, and autonomy, right? So in this FedEx example, the concept that I gave you, we are encouraging people to about autonomy, where they pick their own partners or they pick their group and the challenge that they want to work on. And mastery, it basically focuses on the area of expertise that they have. And purpose, they are creating their own challenge, what is the problem, that statement that they're going to be going behind. So hope that answers your question, Michael.
Thank you, Banu. And we have a second question from Michael for Hiral. So, in a service industry without product or a factory environment, how can we leverage on AR and VR related training?
I think I already addressed in the chat, but I'll just summarize in a minute because we all are running short of time. So, I think in the corporate environment also you can integrate something on the induction, as I was talking about the orientation part. We can have the immersive experience and the walkthroughs of processes into the virtual environment. So these are some things that can be developed, and that's so it's again immersive. So the more I'm into, I'm more confident and comfortable to work with when I'm in the actual environment. So there are already simulations for a lot of technical and the core skills, and for the behavior and the soft skills. I think those coaching discussions that we had is something which can be included as a part of simulation. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, Hiral. Thank you so much for that. So, I don't think so. We have any more questions from the audience. So, with this, I'm sorry, anyone is saying something?
I think Shastri Mantrala has this question. Do you think gamification would work for small companies too? So if someone could
Oh,
quickly answer this, and
oh,
then we can
okay. Yeah,
wrap
now
up.
I can see.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. It is gonna work for small companies as well. Like as Banu had told previously, right? You can start with something small. You can start with something as small as gamification, in terms of points and badges and leaderboards. It's okay. You can start somewhere that's gonna motivate the employees to have healthy competition. They will try to learn more. They'll try to earn badges, and then that is somewhere that's something that's not going to have much of a cost implication. So when you say small companies, I maybe there might be a lot of cost implication. Cost might be a huge factor. There might be lack of budget. That must be the main concern. So I think the basic gamification of leaderboards, points and badges is somewhere you can always start, and that would definitely work. As I said, right, the adoption is going to improve. The people are going to have some healthy competition. You can give some basic rewards, right? So you can, make that a reward-based system where the more points you achieve, let them convert it to some basic Amazon voucher. That's not going to have too much of a
Mhm.
cost implication, but that's going to motivate the learners a lot. So I think it's definitely gonna help. Yeah, Banu, I think you wanted to add something.
No, I just wanted to say, maybe only the you might not get access to the fancy elements of gamification, right? But still, the purpose will be met as long as there is someone driving it and creating a clear objective and helping create a meaningful learning journey for all the learners in the organization. It will still definitely work.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Wonderful speakers, wonderful moderation, and excellent audience that we had today. Thank you so much, everyone. Your engagement and questions have actually added so much to the event. It was truly interactive and a collaborative experience. So, as we conclude, I hope everyone takes away new ideas and strategies to implement gamification in their own organization. Big or small doesn't matter. Go back highly positive about its use in making learning even better. Make sure it's ethical. And thank you once again to all our speakers, moderator, and all of you who attended today. Stay connected, stay innovative, and let's continue to push the boundaries of learning and development. Thank you so much. Bye bye.